everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney phone-in show. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, your host and the author of the Positively Disney books, heartwarming stories about Disney's impact on people's lives, where this show stems from. I want to welcome my Twitch followers and my Facebook followers. I see that Gina and my hubby are on. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm really excited about this show. We've got somebody really fun that's going to be coming on and telling us all about his experiences with Pixar. But before we go on, I just want to thank my sponsor, Michelle McCune, over at Years of Experience. She can be reached at MMCKEOWN at themostexperts.com, and she'll set you up with a fantastic vacation. She's actually taking care of our mini vacation that's coming up in a few weeks to Disneyland, the very first time that our whole family will be at Disneyland. And I'm really, really excited about that. It seems like my husband and I went to Disneyland for one day last year, and my kids and I have been there just, sort of back and forth through the parks when we were there for a dancing competition. Then, of course, I was there when I was younger, but it's the first time, and I'm so looking forward to it. I love the Toy Story franchise. I love the Pixar shorts. What Pixar shorts do you guys like? I know that they show several of them in the park because they're shorts, and I'm always amazed at the detail that they have. It's hard to believe that you're actually watching an animation. So I'm really thrilled to have my guest on. I'll introduce introduce him to you in a moment. But I've got a few characters here just on my desk, and I just want to show you because it really brings back fond memories. These guys are about 15 years old already. It's hard to believe. We've got a Woody. I've got a Woody on my desk, which is, one of my favorites, of course. Tom Hanks just does it brilliantly. And of course, Buzz Lightyear. Gotta love Buzz Lightyear, and Tim Allen voicing him is just absolutely fantastic. And I think that I never laughed so hard when I heard Buzz talking in his Spanish dialogue in one of the Toy Story features. And of course, we have Mr. Potato Head. And I know something that we've done in our family is we've had Mrs. Potato Head, Mr. Potato Head, and a baby Potato Head with a number of these things you can, change up every once in a while. And I keep them in the living room, and then people could just change them up. And you never know what Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head or baby Potato Head were going to be wearing the next day. So that was kind of something fun that you guys might want to try with your family as well. And another, I just love so many of the Toy Story characters, but here, my last one that I have handy is Slinky Dog. And he particularly is a bit close to my heart because I actually have dachshunds. I've still got 2 dachshunds, and they have been such a prevalent part of my life since I was 6 years old. So really love Slinky Dog, and who can't love all the toys in Toy Story, except I must say that the bear wasn't a favorite of mine. But I just want to welcome Carissa and Michael to the show as well. So I was very fortunate to be able to reach out to the former Pixar technical director who actually worked on the very first Toy Story. And he's going to be coming on the show in a moment and sharing with us some of his experiences and some of his words of wisdom if anybody's interested in getting into animation, as well as some fun things at the office. But Pixar offices, I would say, would be fun anyways. But anyways, we're going to get Mr. Mark Henne on the phone again, who was part of this whole wonderful franchise.
Hello, it's Mark.
Hi, Mark. It's Kimberly Bouchard. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so excited to have you on. I just introduced the folks. I have, they're actually like 15, I think 15 years old. I've got a Slinky Dog, a Buzz. Well, actually, we've got 2 Buzz Lightyears because of our sons. And we've got a Jessie and a Woody and a Mr. Potato Head. And just, I'm just telling people that I absolutely love the Pixar shorts. I love the Pixar movies, and just so glad you could come on. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, of course, happy to do it.
Yeah. So what were some of the films that you were involved in at Pixar?
Well, let's see. I was there for quite a while. I started back at the end of 1994 on the original Toy Story, and I worked actually on seven films over the time span I was there, over 18 years,
Wow.
and so from Toy Story up through Brave,
Oh my
and
gosh.
so yeah, I went. So coming in for basically the last 9 months or so of production on Toy Story, and then to A Bug's Life, um,
Okay.
and after A Bug's Life, I went to Monsters Inc. And now
Oh,
most of the studio was working on Toy Story 2 at that time, but
okay.
I was one of the small crew that we were doing early development on Monsters, while
Mm.
everybody else was trying to get Toy Story 2 to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and once Monsters was done, I went to The Incredibles
Oh.
and worked on that. And after Incredibles, I took a little time off, but then came back and worked on Ratatouille
Mm.
for a short time, a few
Mm-hmm.
months on Ratatouille,
Mm-hmm.
and then to Wally,
Mm.
um, and after Wally to Brave. So I
Wow.
tended to work on these films for typically 3 or 4 years for
Oh,
most of them.
wow. Wow.
Um, and because basically what I would do is carry all of the films were like, okay, we got this great idea for a film, and we have no idea how we're going to do it
Oh,
because nobody's ever done it before,
right.
and so I would take a chunk of it and spend a year or two figuring out, okay, how are we going to do this part of it? And then I would take another year or two and then say, okay, now we figured out how we're going to do it. Now let's do it. And so I would then take the research and development that I've been working on, and then carry it into film production, and
Mm.
then work on the assets or work on the shots in the film. And
Wow.
so the kinds of things I tended to do, a lot of it were what we would call character effects or character simulation. Largely, that means like hair and clothing. So, for
Mm.
example, my on The Incredibles, I was the hair and cloth simulation supervisor, and so I oversaw a team of roughly a dozen people on and where we did all of the hair and the clothing, everything from building the models to making sure everything behaved well in the shots. And
Oh my
then
gosh.
for Wally, I was the crowd and simulation supervisor. So again, overseeing a team of roughly a dozen or 15. We did well. Obviously, the first part of the film is on the planet, and
Mm-hmm.
it goes pretty much Wally and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
But then they get to the Axiom, and there's all the robots and all the people that are on the Axiom, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how are we going to get them assembling onto the deck? And what about when the whole thing starts to tilt and they're sliding across the? So that I
Mm.
oversaw the department that produced all of that footage, and then for Brave, I went back to hair and cloth and worked for a while on doing hair and cloth for that film.
That is incredible because I mean, I've seen, honestly, I've seen those films multiple times. I just absolutely love them. And the detail that it's so incredible. And to hear you say that it takes you 3 to 4 years. I mean, that's a long time to be working seriously, on an animation in my mind. I mean, when you think about a documentary, you think documentaries take several years, but because of the very nature of, interviewing and following people around for the story or whatever, but 3 to 4 years. And it just shows that attention to detail. I mean, think of Merida, who, I mean, you can see her hair. I mean, it looks so real, like every
Oh,
strand.
oh yeah, it's well, the films overall that Pixar produces, they take ultimately like 4 to 5 years
Ah,
from
okay.
initial concept
Okay.
to finished film. And so typically where I would come in is there's been a story team that's been in development for, a year, 18 months, and
Mm,
they've gotten the story to the point that they've convinced the studio that it's ready to go, that it's greenlit for production,
mm,
that there's a story there, that they've got uh, everything boarded up at least to the first pass, and the character designs are feeling pretty solid. There are a lot of questions, and they'll continue working on that
mhm,
for a while, but it's gotten to the point where essentially they know the spirit and look of the film, and then they can start bringing in people to help understand and solve the technical challenges
mhm.
that they were trying to come up against. And so that's where I came in typically. And then um, uh, so the whole production would kind of accumulate people and all the way through it. And it's so the height of staffing is typically say between the 2 year and 1 year before
Release.
release.
Right.
Yeah, and that's when it's all hands on deck,
Mm.
um, and
Well,
and all departments are just running full efficiency.
right. And it's really incredible because you see all the credits. We always watch the end of the credits roll, and there are so many animators and so many special effects, so many little, not little, but special departments for every area imaginable. And it's, you know, I don't know, but I remember, watching a Disney animation years ago, where you'd have a few of the credits, a few. But
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Pixar ones, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely outstanding, and it's from actually from all over the world, people involved all over the world. It's really quite fascinating. What had you inspired to do this kind of work? Like, what would you consider your background to have been? Was it animation? Was it computers? Was it art? Or
hmm.
what kind of a yeah.
Well, so when I so I had quite a run at this, right?
Mhm.
18 years, and
Yeah.
4 years prior to that, I was with Rhythm and Hughes Studios in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
doing visual effects for them,
Mm.
and so I went to graduate school in computer science. At University of California, Santa Cruz.
Mhm.
Um, back then, so this was the late 80s that I was doing that work. And
Mm.
so you think back to those days, and
Mm.
the computers that we were using were Silicon Graphics. They were $35,000 for each workstation,
Wow.
and Photoshop didn't exist, Maya didn't exist.
Right.
So basically, we're inventing everything, and you needed to
Mm.
have an in-depth understanding of what you were trying to do if you hoped to do it.
Mhm.
And so there were very few academic programs that you could go to. Nothing like today in
Mhm.
terms of preparing for the field.
Right.
And so, but my degrees are in computer science, but since finishing grad school, I've never held a job title as programmer.
Oh.
Um, and because I honestly never cared so much about the computers or producing software. What I
Mhm.
always cared about was making something with it, and so
Mm.
my thesis work in grad school, I was looking at how to produce smooth skin deformations for jointed
Mm.
characters.
Mm.
Back in the day, most of the characters you would see, in TV commercials or what have you, because they weren't doing film visual effects with computers at that
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and you would see all of the characters, and they would have rigid separations at all of the jointed seams, and then
Yes.
seams,
Yeah.
right? And so I was
Yes.
like, well, what if you wanted more human characters? What if you wanted, animals? And so um, my thesis work was about how do you create smoothly deforming skin for a more naturalistic
Mm.
human appearance.
Mhm.
And on Toy Story, so that was or not Toy Story, but Pixar. That's when Tintoy was in
Right.
production,
Right.
and so. And so I was fascinated with. I mean, today the baby
Oh,
is
quite
is
different.
quite dated,
Yeah.
but at the time, this was breakthrough technology,
Right.
and so I met Bill Reeves at a SIGGRAPH conference, and I spoke with him a little about how did they do that,
Hmm.
and that was kind of really fodder for what I wanted to do with my own work, and I ended up actually uh, as in graduate school, working as an intern at Pixar.
Oh.
Uh, and and then I went off to Rhythm and Hughes for a few years, and then came back.
Hmm.
So I spoke with people like Orrin Jacob and others who I'd known from my time as an intern, and
Mm.
yeah, I said, no, I'm not really enjoying Los Angeles. I love the studio, but what are you guys up to? And they said, oh, we're making a movie about toys. You should come.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so and so I decided I was gonna take the leap, and
Wow.
yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, because I mean, that is absolutely, you're right. It's absolutely breakthrough technology. They did not, I mean, it was just such a creative force on so many levels. What was your first day like at Pixar? Because I mean, I mean, of course, you'd done an internship, and um, you had worked at the other studios. But what was it like for you that first day? Did you realize really what you were being embraced with?
Uh, well, none of us really realized what it was that we were making. Uh, at the time, because
Hmm.
keep in mind this was the first computer animated feature film,
Right.
um,
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
and Pixar was really an unproven entity. They were doing commercial work, but not all that much.
Hmm.
They really had this vision of doing film,
Hmm.
and compared to the amount of footage that we produced at Rhythm and Hughes, Pixar
Hmm.
actually was a pretty small outfit
Right.
at that point,
Wow. Wow.
um, and so uh, so no, we didn't really know kind of what we were getting into, but so uh, the very first day. Uh, uh, One of the things that you do is uh, you go into training for that, because Pixar software then and still is largely proprietary,
Mm.
meaning the animation system. No other studio in the world uses their
Wow.
animation system.
Wow.
They wrote it there, they use it there, and so it's
Pretty cool.
uh, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's
Mm.
also uh,
Protected.
protected, and,
Yeah.
and and it's all different. I mean,
Right.
you've got to that's like how to and to this day they have, when people come in, they go through a boot camp and training on, okay, here's how we do things, which is
Okay.
like nobody else.
Right.
But it was much scaled down. Now they call it Pixar University.
Oh.
And have people full time. That's what they do, is train incoming employees and everything. But back then it was, you go and visit some people, for a couple hours and talk with them. But
Mm.
I started the same day as Bill Wise, who is still at the studio,
Um,
and he actually, so he was character supervisor and the voice for Screen's Flavor. Um,
oh, for crying out loud.
yeah, yeah. And so Bill and I remained fast friends,
Mm.
and and so we went through all this training together. And his background was more on the art side, and mine was
Right.
more on the tech side, and so
Right.
we kind of leaned on each other all the way through this, and um, so, but it was a really small crew. I mean, the original Toy Story crew was, I don't know, 125, maybe
Wow.
150 people,
Wow.
compared to what they are now.
Hmm.
Easily it's 200, 250 people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so kind of double the size on just
Hmm.
on the overall crew.
Mm.
Um, but no, one of the things about making animated films is that you really only see them 3 seconds at a time as you're making them, because
Oh, okay.
that's
Right.
the average length of a shot in a film. From the time you can imagine, the director saying, "Okay, action and
Hmm.
cut," 3 seconds.
Wow.
And so as you're working on this, and an animator might work on a shot on
Hmm.
3 seconds. It
Hmm.
might take them a week, 2 weeks to do that. And for the work that I was doing as well, you would work on these shots, for a week or more,
Hmm.
and then move on to the next bit. And
Hmm.
uh, so, at certain points in time, you see the film in rough form,
Okay.
but and it's always way behind in terms of assembling it.
Hmm.
But then the crew, we didn't actually see the finished film, especially with sound
Hmm.
and score,
Hmm.
until I guess it was like October, and then the film was hitting the theaters in November,
Wow.
and
That late. Holy cow.
it was, yeah. So and we had our crew screening, and I just got the biggest lump in my throat, because it was at
Mm.
that moment that it sank in as to what we had just made. Because
Yeah.
I honestly, you know, uh, it was then that I realized, oh my gosh, this movie is gonna do something.
Mm.
Um,
I can only imagine, because I mean that was such a labor of love, really, for 4 to 5 years when you think about it. And when you said 3 seconds, so a week or two to work on a perfect 3 second shot. I mean, there's a lot of 3 seconds in a movie of that length, like an hour and what, an hour
There's
and a half.
hour and a half, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, so
holy
typically
cow.
there's, yeah, 1,500 shots that
Yeah, that's
that go into
incredible.
make a film like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect shots, right? I mean, we're not
Yes.
talking about just singular shots, right? They have to be done perfectly, right?
They,
Wow,
you do
wow.
them as well as you can. Well, it's said within the studio that these films are never finished. We just run out of time, because we
Um,
could keep tweaking them forever.
yeah,
And and that's the thing, is that Pixar is a studio filled with perfectionists,
right.
and they will work on it until you take it away from them.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
That's it. Right.
so
It's kind of the blessing and the curse of a perfectionist, isn't it?
it really is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. So something that I was thinking about is that well before you ever had the feature, first feature film, I mean, you did shorts, and I'm right in assuming that. I believe that. And now,
Hmm.
when you had created, I don't know how many shorts came out of your studio before you did the first full length feature, but you guys continued doing the shorts, which I think is awesome, because you guys could have just said, oh, you know what? We now proven ourselves. We're just going to keep making these full length films. So, what is it that had you guys still put your energy and creative talent into these shorts? Because I think they're absolutely fantastic. I love them.
Mm.
I love them, the lesson and I love them so much. They're just beautifully done.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and the shorts. There are a lot of reasons that Pixar makes the shorts, and I only participated in one of the short films, which was the Blue Umbrella.
Oh,
Um,
I love that
and
one.
and yeah, so that was a really fun film. And
Mm,
so, for example, that one, the films, they uh, they allow Pixar to try some things out or
Okay.
try some people out that where they're not taking the risk of an entire feature film. And so, for
Okay.
example, in the Blue Umbrella, um, it was kind of a really innovative look, and they were using a new rendering system called Katana. Um, or lighting system, excuse me,
Mm.
called Katana
Mhm.
for that one, and so that was developed by Sony and introduced as a system for um, basically thinking about and applying the lighting into the scenes. And so
Okay.
it ended up, and so it's a wonderful tool, but um, when you're adopting a new tool and especially in a pipeline and process that's so
Mm.
proprietary,
Mhm.
then we have our way of working,
Mhm.
and it has to tie in with everything that we do. And
Mm.
so there was a lot of figuring out that has to happen. And the only way you really know that you've got it figured out is to try it and put it
Gotcha.
through the real paces.
Right.
Um, and and then so those are some of the things that they do, and others, they want to, like with Bounden and Bud
Mm.
Lucky,
Mhm.
who directed that one, and so Bud had before working for Pixar, his roots go way back to working on Sesame Street and
Oh, wow.
some of those kinds of things, and so he just had this folksy charm to his work, his personality, and so they wanted to give him that opportunity to tell
Mm.
a story
Mhm.
as kind of just um, recognition of who he was and what he did,
Mm.
and the short format worked really well
Yeah.
um, for Bud
I I was
and
just
for
I was
Bowden.
just curious, Mark, how long, I mean, we know how long a feature film takes. How long does it take roughly to do a short?
It varies
Okay.
a fair bit. It all depends on um, because the short films don't always get the crew they want when they need them,
Oh,
and
okay.
so uh, uh, so uh, but they and I'm not sure when they normally do our concept, but I think like 18 months to 2 years is probably a more typical kind of
Mm.
production timeline for
Mhm.
a short film.
And
Um,
that seems so, like, again, that seems like such a long time for such a little segment, but they are absolutely incredible. And so it's kind of like the shorts were like the sort of the learning special tools to perfect before doing a film, or introducing it into a feature film. Is sort of, that's was one of
it,
the
it
ideas anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things. And sometimes it's they have someone that they'd like to maybe step up into a bigger role, and so they give that person uh, a chance at a bigger role in a
Mhm.
smaller production, and then they
Mhm.
show they can do that, and then maybe they can take that bigger leap next time. Another
Okay.
thing about it is that Pixar makes its films for honestly for themselves first. And what I mean by that is that they don't want to make a film that they don't want to watch,
Right, makes
um,
sense.
and and so and they make these films because they love making them,
Mm.
and so the same is true with for the shorts, the and um, uh, so and they also really honor and respect the long tradition, and Disney was key in this is in supporting the short films, and
Mhm.
going back to the days in the say in the 40s and 50s, the golden age of film,
Mhm.
where you would go see a feature, but before the feature, there were, the movie news and and you'd get an animated short
Right.
beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
and just as part of the entertainment package.
Mm.
And so uh, the studio is, in addition to all being perfectionists, they're all film buffs, and just
Sure.
love cinema, and so
Um,
they want to honor that as
mm.
well. And so the fact that these films on their own don't have really a saleable market, um, they honestly don't care. They want to make these, and by the way, here's an opportunity to put more work in front of the audience, and give
Right.
them added value and entertainment,
Uh,
and the films are shorter, an hour and a
mm,
half
mm-hmm.
typically,
Right.
than many features. So
Right.
it also gives you a fuller experience when you come to the theater.
Right.
So
Love it.
there are a lot of reasons why they make
Mm,
the films, but
mm-hmm.
the first reason, I think, is honestly they just love doing it.
Yeah, like
Um,
sounds like it for sure. I think that's wonderful because when you love what you're doing, you can see it in your work. You can see it in anybody's work. It's
mhm.
they probably don't look at it as work, right? It's just something that they love to do, and it's another avenue for creative outlet for them, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, people are there because they really can't imagine doing anything else.
Right. Oh,
Um,
yeah, I understand that. That and what a wonderful way of work to be, instead of having to go to a grueling, I mean, it's grueling work for sure, but I mean, at least they enjoy it. And I think that's wonderful to have a life to do that. I wanted to just briefly touch on Toy Story 4 that's coming out June
yeah. Mhm.
21st. So
Right.
I'm just curious to know, what do you think about that? I mean, that's number 4.
I
It's hard to
know.
believe.
And so I'll confess I had mixed emotions when I learned that they were doing it, because
Yeah,
the trilogy was just so perfect.
right.
There are so few um, film trilogies that really hold up, where you
Mhm.
say that all of the films were worth making, and and tell you something more about those characters, about that world,
Yeah.
and the uh, with the first three Toy Story films, I my favorite is the original, but in large part that's because
You
that's the
worked on
one I
it. Yeah.
worked on,
Yeah.
and then the other films I was busy on other films when they were in production.
Mhm.
Not to say that because they're um, uh, they're also awesome films, and
Mhm.
amazing films, and so I think the challenge for Pixar is to prove that Toy Story 4 belongs with the first three,
Right.
and as um, uh, being creative and entertaining, and telling us something new and more.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know the director, Josh Cooley. I never worked directly with him. He has a really strong pedigree,
Mhm.
especially with Pete Docter, and now Pete's overseeing uh, creative roles, the films at Pixar,
Mhm.
um, and but Josh, with his work in on Up and Inside Out, and so
Mm.
he was story supervisor on Inside Out,
Mhm.
which was just an amazingly creative film.
Mhm.
So I have high hopes.
Mm.
Lee Unkrich recently uh, uh, has stepped away from Pixar. He was
Mhm.
the director for Toy Story 3, and started
Mm.
out as editor on the original Toy Story.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so, Lee knew those characters inside and out,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
We'll see. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I guess we'll see.
Josh has all the background you could hope for,
Mhm.
and although it's his first directing role, so
Mhm.
I'm sure that Pete has been mentoring him,
Right.
all through it,
Yeah.
and
Well, we
uh,
certainly
uh,
have fallen in love with all those characters, and I'll never forget in Toy Story 3 when I thought they were meeting their demise, and I was so upset. I couldn't because we were led to believe there's no way out. There's no way they are going to survive, and then they do, and when you think back. It's like, gosh, it's an animation, it's toys, but you get hooked very easily and very quickly
mhm.
emotionally, with that. So yeah, I'll be one of those going to see the movie. I mean, I absolutely am looking forward to see how it all fits with the rest. Mark, I was just curious. So where has your career taken you? I mean, you did 18 years at Pixar, and can you tell everybody what you're up to these days now?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I did. So it was what 22 years in animation
The
and visual
industry.
effects and in the industry, and
Hmm.
then I got to the point where uh, I felt like I needed a change,
Hmm.
and um, the what the answer came to is actually teaching, and so
Hmm.
I teach at Digipen Institute of Technology in Redmond, outside of Seattle,
Hmm.
and I oversee the graduate program, the Master of Fine Arts in Digital Arts,
Mm.
at Digipen,
Nice.
and I also I teach in the undergraduates for the students in the digital art and animation program, and the
Nice.
main thing that I teach there is the capstone animated film projects,
Wow.
and so you talk about oh gosh, making a short film that takes a year or two.
Mm.
Well, it takes my students basically a year and a half to make one of their 2-minute films.
Wow.
And I co-teach that with Pamela Matthews,
Mm.
who comes from Disney traditional animation.
Right.
And so she worked on a variety of films there. And so for the last 6 years, she and I have tag teamed on coaching these students
Mm.
through making their films, and we're really proud of them. They've done a great job, and we've gotten a lot of success going to animation festivals. I just
Nice.
saw at the Seattle International Film Festival, one of our recent student films is showed there just
Wow.
a week ago, and
Mm.
so I went to see it there at the festival, and
Nice.
the students were there to answer questions afterwards, and
Um,
so that's giving back and helping that next generation to make great films. That's kind of
nice.
where the reward is
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, I would
And
think so. I mean, it's rewarding to see
uh,
your own work, but then to see your proteges, I think that is really special.
yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. They come up with a lot of great ideas, and so for us to be able to coach them through that and hone it and get it to look good and have something to say, when we're successful at that, then
Mm.
that's a huge reward.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you because, anybody watching this, they might know somebody or they might have somebody interested or maybe somebody's thinking about it. What kind of words of wisdom would you offer those that are thinking about a career, in animation or digital art and animation or something to that effect? What kind of things would you tell somebody if they were interested in pursuing this?
Well, I guess the first thing is recognize that it's a lot of work. It's a lot
Mm,
of hard work, and
mhm,
so it has to be something that you're really passionate about, and
right.
something that you can't not think about. And
Mm,
so if you're doing that, and so um, uh, talking to people who say are applying to our program or think about things, I'm like, the first thing is draw and observe and have a sketchbook with you. And one of the best things that you can do in getting practice is what we call urban sketching or cafe sketches, where basically you've got to spare you're sitting at the airport and you're waiting for your flight, and guess what, there's somebody sitting there just posing and being a model for you.
Oh
Isn't that
yeah.
awesome? And there's a kid doing something funny, and sketch that out. So it's and as you're doing that, you can think about imagine a little story about them. Where are they going? What are they doing? And it doesn't matter how it relates to
right,
who
what
they
they're
really
doing.
are, but use your inventiveness and use every opportunity to do that. And then when you're in school, be serious about it, and do more than the minimum, do more than you're asked for, because if you want to get into a studio like Pixar, then the people who get there, as I said, they're perfectionists. They worked really hard. They are the top of their class.
Right.
And so you don't get through school and then all of a sudden become the top of your class.
Right.
No, you work hard through school and you do that, and so find a program that helps prepare. And so DigiPen is a great place, but there's plenty of schools around the country that that really does well, and look at the work and that they do, because on their websites those things will be there, and see if it inspires you, see if you love it, and then in practice, a lot of the software they use, Maya and all this stuff, you can get it for free. Honestly, you can get a student license and get the software for free.
That's amazing.
And there are tons and tons of video tutorials. Some are better than others, but where you can at least break the ice on this stuff, so you get into school and you're not seeing it for the first time.
Oh, that's great. That's really good to know, because, these are kids, these are students, and they're not full time. Well, I mean, some of them might be full time somewhere else, but, they, I think that's really good to know that they can access these tools without having to, break the bank or whatever, that they can actually access them for free and get a little bit of a handle on it. That's so nice. That's really good information to know, Mark. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to thank you so much for sharing all of that with us tonight, Mark. It was really, really fascinating, and I don't know if I'll see you at the theater with Toy Story 4 comes out. I'm sure you'll check it out at one point, but I think it's just such a legacy, and I mean, Pixar. I just really look forward to the next short. And now that I realize that it takes 18 months to a year, it's like, okay, well, that's that, or 18 months, I should say, to 2 years. Now I understand why they aren't coming out with one necessarily twice a year or whatever, like they come out quickly, but it's just, I just absolutely, I think, I don't, it's hard to say which one my favorite is, but I always think about the Piper, and I think it was so brilliant the way, the mother was teaching her little baby, but also the short, I'm sure you saw it. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Is it bow? Oh my gosh. There's just so much depth in just the story as well. I'm all about the story as well too, and really enjoy it. But Mark, I won't take any more of your time up, but have a wonderful rest of your week. And thanks so much again for coming on the show. It was really delightful speaking with you.
Kimberly, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, you're very welcome. Okay, take care then.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I just really enjoyed that, guys. We all know the Pixar movies. We're all familiar with the shorts, and I'm just curious to know if you want to just comment what is your favorite character from Toy Story, and and or what is your favorite Pixar short? Because I know Piper is one of the mine, Luna, the Blue Umbrella, Bow. I mean, those are just ones that I'm thinking about right off the bat, and I'm just so glad that we could have somebody from Pixar that could let us know a little bit about pursuing. If you are somebody out there that wants to pursue something like this, what it is you need to maybe look at and consider. For now, I'm just going to wrap up the show, guys, and thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I just want to wish you a wonderful week and be well and stay safe until next week. Bye for now. Have a good night.